It's an absolute honor and pleasure to have with us Dr. Anand Deshpande, the founder and chairman of Persistent Systems.
Thank you for inviting me here.
What were the plans when you set out of making like a multi-billion-dollar company?
So to imagine that you're going to come back and do something big was never an option.
Just want to understand, what does legacy mean to you, especially when, it's not tied to family succession?
So, I believe that I should share what I know, what I learned, what I earned, and all of those kind of things. So right now I'm in the how do I be more impactful and long term in terms of contributing or sharing what I have.
It's an absolute honor and pleasure to have with us Dr. Anand Deshpande, the founder and chairman of Persistent Systems. And we're going to be talking to him about building an organization that lives beyond the shadow of the founder, finds a life of its own and a purpose, and actually goes on to become an institution and a legacy. Dr. Deshpande, thank you so much for talking to us today. You started Persistent in 1990. It's today a $1.4 billion company with more than 24,000 employees, presence in more than 21 countries. You started your career with Hewlett-Packard in the US. You were in 2023 named the Entrepreneur of the Year. You've served on the Executive Council of NASSCOM. You've been the founding president of ACM India, which is the Association for Computing Machinery. And you've contributed to national initiatives like UIDAI and the National Data Governance Framework. The first thing that I'm going to ask you is, how did it all happen? Back in the 80s, if you were a computer engineer, being in the US, working for HP was probably the most charmed life one could have had. So what sort of drove you to want to come back to India and be an entrepreneur? Those were not the days of startups when everybody wanted to be an entrepreneur. How did that all really happen, and how do you envisage Persistent at that point in time?
So first, thank you for inviting me here. It's a real honor and a pleasure to be part of this 90 years of GT Bharat. And it's a real honor to be included in this list. And I've had the pleasure of meeting Vishesh, of course, but his father as well, which was a very amazing thing. Thanks for setting that up. And, it's a 3 generations worth of company. So it's very inspiring to see that. And we just completed 35 years of Persistent a few months back. And when I look at 35 and think 90, it's just such a big deal in a way. So first, congratulations to GT Bharat and to
Thank you.
The family and the rest of you as well for making this such a wonderful organization.
We call it the extended GT Bharat family.
Extended GT Bharat family. But yes, very inspiring and a lot to learn from you all. To answer your specific question, so yes, meaning I grew up in Bhopal as a kid working part of the BHEL township, everyone was engineers, we went to engineering, so ended up in Kharagpur. Yes, graduated from there, went to the US like everyone else, followed the crowd. And then when I was at HP, I had this 18-month thing that I had a J1 visa, which gave me 18 months of what you call practical training. And there was a decision to be made whether I should continue or not. And I sort of ran into an interesting article at that time, which was called the X+1 syndrome, where everyone, it was from the Economic Times, and there was this article that in India, Indians in the Bay Area or anywhere in the US tend to sort of say, oh, I'll finish my PhD, work for 1 year, I'll get my green card, work for 1 year, get married and work for 1 year, and never go back, right? So you get stuck. So I thought, if I have to go back, I should do it early or not do it at all, right? So I said, either I'm going to go buy a big boat to say I'm here, anchor it, or just go back. And incidentally, at that time, what happened was that in 1990, Mr. N. Vittal was the secretary of Department of Electronics. And he visited the Bay Area at that time and spoke to an organization called Silicon Valley Indian Professional Organization, SIPA as it was called. And he shared the fact that they were setting up these software technology parks and they wanted to have people come back to India. Incidentally, the first one was being set up in Pune, where my parents had moved. And it just made a whole lot of sense to sort of, if I have to take a chance, do it now rather than do it later. So I decided that I should just go back, completing my 18 months at HP rather than get anchored in the US. And somehow things worked out and, when sort of keep rolling things, then I never felt like going back.
Did you envisage, were there plans when you set out of making like a multi-billion-dollar company
No, of
and
course
all of
not.
that, or?
No, see, if you look at India in 1990, the entire software industry would have been 30, $40 million
Yeah.
globally, right? So to imagine that you're going to come back and do something big was never an option. It was more like, okay, so my goal was, so my work at HP or during my PhD was relating to data. So I was working on query processing of complex objects, to be very specific. So this is more like database type work. And when I was doing that, my goal was that if I stay in the US, I'll do something. I should not compromise my resume over the next 10 years. So that was my only goal. And I wanted to do something fun and exciting. And that was the thing, and do it from India. So those were the only three things I was looking at, very selfishly, not to compromise the resume. Second, do things from India and do something that's fun. So those were the basic things that I started out with. And when you are starting with nothing, it's quite easy to do these things. You're not dependent on somebody telling
You're
you.
being very humble by saying that. But the other thing that really stands out when one reads about, how you've gone about building Persistent is the push on making it run as a professional organization. So you very consciously worked at, building Persistent as a very professional organization. When you look around, typically, founders need a trigger, whether it's private equity coming in or you're going in for an IPO, and then that's when people start talking about professionalizing the organization. What sort of drove you to have that desire to sort of set up and run and grow Persistent with a very professional setup?
See, okay, some of these things happened because that was the way things were happening at that point, in a sense. So I started in the 90s, right? One, I didn't have a whole lot of cash of my own. There wasn't any VC funding or any of those kinds of things. There was no family cash to the extent that one can say, oh, I can just do it on my own. So some of that was an issue. We were borrowing money from bankers and other companies that were set up in the IT industry, both in the US, where I had worked for us some time and had seen companies. They were all seemed like a few people coming together and saying, okay, let's join together, put a little bit of our money and time and see something that can be done. And I was trying to sort of find more people to come and join me as well at that point. So that's how it really started. But I would say the big trigger that happened was, I would say, in 96, 97. So till then, I had other people on it, but all of us felt it was our company and we decided what to do. And it was just a conglomeration of bunch of people who were working in a way on their own, right? And this was in 97. We had gone to an offsite. We were about, I would say, 50 to 60 people at that point. We were doing well. We had good number of PhDs in the company. Work was good. It was fun. It was all nice. Whatever my three aspirations had set up, we were achieving those goals. But there was more work that was coming our way. And we were saying no because any new work would have meant more headaches in some sense. Right? So there was always this challenge about should I take up this work or not? And one of the things that happened was that we were in an offsite and one of the employees who was in the group said, why are you sort of holding things back? And then I really asked myself this question that whose company is it? Is it my company or our company? And this transition between my company to our company took me almost a year. Because I was sort of, if you do this and that, whatever. But then
But there must have been a lot of psychological safety for someone to say that to you.
No, we were very open. We still are. Many people have said lots of things to us. But no, that was not an issue at all when we were at. So I used to work at HP and the whole US context at that point was quite easy to say anything you wanted. But so that was not an issue. But it did ask me that question a lot. And I really spent a year thinking through it. And I came back with this conclusion that if it is our company rather than my company, then my job as the CEO is to be supporting the company first before supporting myself. If I'm making any decisions, I need to make decisions that are for the company as a CEO's job. So CEO's job is to make sure the company does well and it succeeds, right?
Sure.
And it's not about what I want to do. It's about what the company needs to do. And the second thing is if I'm not able to do that, then I shouldn't remain CEO. I can, of course, do whatever else I can do. But as the CEO, I needed to make sure that the company's success is first, even at the compromise of individual stuff. So that changed my life. I thought very differently about it. And from then on, one of the big changes that I made at that point was that, see, we had a group of us, 60 people, several of us were there. And we came to the conclusion that I was the better salesman amongst all the people rather than everyone else. While I could write code, everyone else was writing code. So I sort of moved out of being full-time coding to being pretty much a full-time salesperson in a way. And then I should have done it earlier. Sales is the most exciting thing for sure. But yes, so that was the change that I made, and I focused myself more so on the growth of the business or whatever it takes, more than sort of looking at, is this right for me alone? Because before that I was saying, this is not fun. Why should I do it? This is not what I want to do. But then it's not what I want to do, it's what the company wants to do.
As an individual, you always get torn between, the diverse interests you have as a promoter, as the CEO and all of that. But tell me something in this long journey that you've had with Persistent. Have there been any inflection points where you felt there was a toss-up between, you asserting your founder power as opposed to sort of relenting to, let's say, professional advice or whatever?
No, I think we've had lots of these things, and I'll give you 3 instances, so to say. One is, of course, I've always believed that...
and there's no right or wrong here, because there are times promoters can have some fabulous gut instinct, which professionals may advise you. Otherwise, you'll still go ahead and do something and you're proven right, and vice versa. So
let me state it in a slightly different way. So what I have found is that growth in companies is a sequence of S-curves. So you do some things, you see growth, and you come to a transition point. And if you don't reinvent yourselves, you will basically stay stagnant and eventually die. And each of these growth transitions is a lot of work for everyone, because what works in one curve, which I call orbit, doesn't work in the next orbit. Yeah. So every orbit is unique. It needs something different. And these transitions at orbits are very difficult for the founder and the team in general. And that's sort of when, you have to make some choices. And if you don't make, it's not about right or wrong, but what choices you make will determine whether you go to the next orbit or not, right? So very early on, like for example, we did a round of investment in 2000. That was a choice we had to make, because once you take somebody else's money, then your course to some extent determines in a particular way. We did ESOPs in a particular way at that point. And so there were many such decisions that were made, which were okay, which changed the course of the company. And at every point, there were people who would have said that, why do we need to do it? Let's keep doing what we are doing. We had a few products that we built. They were doing okay, but it is very hard to run them separately and together. And a lot of different things happened because of that. We ran a couple of partnership companies as well a couple of times, but they also didn't do that well. A lot of those, are experiments you try out. And as a founder who starts out early in their life, you have, and the goal was, see, we are all tech founders and not necessarily. Yeah. So the profit motive was not the number one idea in terms of how the early stage of things. So for first 20 years or so, what we did was far more important than how much money we made. So that changed the course of the company in many ways. We chose not to do any Y2K work for that matter in the first 10 years, which is when a lot of Y2K work was happening. We did not do US resume body shopping till. So I did a first H1B in 2003, 13 years into the business for a sales guy. So we had not been sponsoring people to go abroad. So we had a very unique way. And many of those choices were made by me and our team members who were quite okay with the choices we made, potentially at the expense of the growth of the company. But all those choices were still for the company, not personal choices. It was not about me making whatever. It's more like company needing to do those things.
Any incident that kind of you want to highlight where, maybe you pushed the team to do something because your gut told you to, or?
Yeah, so, okay, let me share a few ideas of where in 2000, what happened was kind of a lot of our customers were the .com companies in some sense. And all of a sudden, the market just tanked. And all of a sudden, we were short of business. We were not sure what to do. And there was a belief that, there's a lot of other work that is coming and let's just change and do everything else. So I was sort of very clear that let's remain focused and not try to do different things just because of whatever reason, because if you have to win, you have to be a leader. And this is something that I saw from GT as well. You guys have always, when you're a smaller business competing with lots of big boys who are already there, you have to have a very specific and unique differentiator. Otherwise, you will not
Absolutely.
win. And that was a huge challenge for us at that point, because, we were saying no to businesses that could have come our way, or people who were offering kind of just work. But we chose not to take that on because we said, no, we should keep our focus. And this is something that I also see with what you're not the big four, but
Very
you are
clear of the
unique and
space,
different.
yeah, we want to.
Unless you're differentiated, why would somebody go beyond the big four? Right? So we always had the big boys in the business, and Y2K had actually enhanced some of these companies to become fairly large. We were relatively small. Just to give a context, we were about 110 people, 100 people for the first time in 99, and 2001 we were about 125 people. Okay, so 12 years into almost 11 years into the business. So yeah, I mean, we grew very slowly in the early years, but we made our mistakes. We learned from them. We all got trained to basically run our business in a way. So it was a good workshop.
You've also been one of those people who very openly stated that, it's not a must for your children to come into the business.
Yeah.
And I guess much before even the children could decide whether they want to or not, I mean, there was no compulsion for them. Openly, publicly, you'd sort of said that, you're not sort of fussed about them coming in. Which I can now put into perspective knowing the way you were looking at the organization, because otherwise, from a founder's perspective, one way of looking at continuity is having someone from the family step into the business. And we have, enough examples around us of very large companies, very professional, but yet, there is some legacy from the family that kind of steps into leadership. So what made you sort of be so clear about it right from the outset that there's no expectation of the children coming in?
So let me say the other way around. So what I felt is that the children should have choice to do what they want to do. If they feel like coming to the business, we should let them. So it is not like we are, unlike other companies where they have said, we will not let our kids in. It's just not like that. So the kids have a choice. If they feel like coming, they can come. That said, it's very hard when the world is moving the way it is moving, there's so many exciting things happening in the world. I just felt like, if I were at this point, why would I come and join an existing 25,000 people company? I might as well start my own, right? So we should allow kids to decide what they want to do. And I think they will make choices as they feel right. At least our daughter has decided to start her own, and we'll see.
Do you think sort of it adds a little more resilience and professionalism in founder-led companies where, there's clarity to say that the next gen won't necessarily come in? So, people are not worried about, forging their equations with the next gen and, how that's going to play out for them.
No, I think, it's sort of important for founders to understand that ownership and management are two different things.
Absolutely.
So once you separate those two things out, then I think this conflict is not there. So even if the kids were to come, or for example, and if, whatever succession, whatever we have, they will not necessarily come in. Whether they come into management requires them to go through the ranks.
The path that,
But if they want to come into ownership, it's whatever they inherit, right? So I don't know exactly how that will turn out, but I have been thinking very hard about last few years, especially about separation between ownership and management. And I have sort of accepted that, I'm in the ownership camp and not in the management camp right now. And I think the kids have a choice. If they have to enter the management camp, they have to go through it in a way. If they end up in ownership, I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
So any thoughts, you feel that how founders should be looking at succession and legacy? How should they look at it? I mean, you've rationalized it very beautifully in your own, scheme of things. But any word of advice for other founders?
I don't know if I have. I'm just still trying to find things out. Okay, I'm not sure I have it all figured out. It's just that I reached a point, having run the business for nearly 30 years, that I said, hey, man, as I look at my next 30, I didn't see the need to be an operator after that. So that was one move I made, which I am glad I did. I don't think I could have made it much earlier as well. So it's not like I should have started out earlier. There's a time when you feel like
everybody has to find that.
Yeah, I have to find. I had to have the thrill. It's thrilling to be in the driving seat, and I had good thrill for 30 years, and then I was sort of made that choice. So the differentiation between management and this thing, it happened because of that. It's not like I have a whole lot of advice for founders, but the founders' energy and sometimes the sort of calls that founders can make, no management would make. Typically, they're very oriented in a shorter thing. Founders tend to have a little more longer term view. So there is certain value in running founder-led companies to that extent. But
Oh, there is tremendous. There is tremendous. I mean,
but founders also have to understand that they can't be everything to everyone.
actually, you summed it up very beautifully, and I think that's where the fine balance lies. Is when do you let the organization take its own shape and energy, rather than always being the one.
Correct. So as I mentioned, when I said the 1997 thing, when I moved from my company to our company, that was very, very, should I say, liberating in a way. And I really felt that, when I reach a point where I find that my priorities are compromising the company's priorities, I should move on. Right? So around after I turned 55, 60, I actually spent a lot of time thinking through this particular transition. There was also a lot of work and discussion going on about the fact that chairman and CEO should be different. And I used that opportunity a little bit to think through this a little bit. So one of my biggest challenges at that point was that, okay, I have done nothing else and I have no other skill. So what else will I do? Okay, so part of the reason to hold on to the job was that I didn't know what else to do. So that was a bigger problem in some sense. So I spent a lot of time trying to think about what else could I do if I were not running the business every day full time, 24/7. Because doing nothing is very scary and was not an option.
But it's amazing that you can talk about it with such candor.
No, so I did put out a big, and I made a nice mind map with lots of different options of what I could do, and tried experimenting with a few things. Can I have something or otherwise to do? And then during the succession also, I spoke to a lot of other founders and CEOs who had done it successfully, not so successfully. And they came back with two things that I think may be useful for others who are doing this transition. One is that everyone said, make sure you have enough other things to do so that you don't have the urge to spend time in the company.
Yeah.
If you don't have other things to do, then you'll
gravitate back towards,
Can't just be just golf or travel. Yeah. You have something more meaningful than that. The second thing is don't talk to anybody in the company. Because all they want to do is to spread gossip.
Yeah.
Just shut them off. Just have hi, hello conversations with everyone else. Oh, birthdays. Yeah, happy birthday. But don't talk anything about business.
No, these are all words of wisdom.
Yeah, so that's worked for me. Those two things I have really followed very carefully. So I have enough things to do, and I don't talk to people about the business.
Fantastic. And we will come to that. We will talk about that a little more as we go along. But just want to understand, what does legacy mean to you, especially when, it's not tied to family succession?
I'm not thinking too much about what personal legacy is. The way I look at it right now is that I have what I have in terms of time in this world. So, I've been very lucky, benefited a lot from, being at the right place at the right time, and also some other things that have happened. So, I believe that I should share what I know, what I learned, what I earned, and all of those kinds of things. So right now I'm in the, how do I be more impactful and long-term in terms of contributing or sharing what I have, quote unquote, benefited from the rest of the world. And I really believe in the network. When you have benefited from the network, it's given me many things. I should give back to the network. So that's all I'm thinking about. I'm not sure after I'm gone what will happen to that. It's not that important to me. While I live, I want to make sure it feels good to give. So that's the mode in which I'm.
So any advice for new founders and entrepreneurs as to how they should build a business which kind of
I think
sets up to last beyond them?
No, I don't know if I have any particular advice or anything like that. I think keeping the business to last beyond them may or may not be the objective right now. I think as we look at, now when we look at the new world that is coming up, I think life of companies is going to get shorter. People will do more and more gigs, sell them off, build the next one and all that. So it's not clear if creating a company like the GT that has lasted 90 years is going to be the future of businesses. I think people will buy and sell companies, and legacy can't just be about the company. It has to be about the things you do rather than...
And the impact you create.
Yeah, and it need not be about one company that I built for 90 years. That is great if it can be done, but it's not that straightforward, or it's not necessarily the norm moving forward, I believe. Life of
That's
companies is
interesting, yeah.
definitely getting shorter.
In this whole process, how did you find, I mean, what was that USP that you developed to attract talent? Because I guess,
Yeah.
there is limited talent available, and, every company wants the best. How do you ensure that you get that talent, and more importantly, retain them?
Okay. Yeah, I think this is a good question. So I'll talk about the early years and then I'll share. So we had decided to work in the data related areas very early on. That was my area of expertise. And data is a very large but specialized market. So it's not small. And what I did in the early 91, I ran a database conference in India. So one of the biggest database conferences held in India at that time. It was called COMAD in 91. So I got to meet all the data companies and data people in the community in Mumbai and in India. And I made a list of about 12 names of people. I said, I'm going to go after these people. It took me a long time. I got one of those 12. But it took me 5 years to get them. But anyway, by creating that focus, saying, okay, I'm looking for this, so some of the people didn't come themselves, but they sent other people to saying, okay, this guy seemed like that. So there was a very this systematic and deliberate attempt to recruit and hire people who were targeted, not just advertisements to get people in. The second thing that we did was, of course, so I really believe that it's the mission that brings people together.
Yeah.
So the fact that we were doing something, which I said out, we want to build something very cool, unique from India, and we will not compromise on the quality of work that we are doing, and the kinds of projects we had were comparable to. So if somebody in the US were to come and see the work we were doing, they were very comparable. We could publish what we had done at that level. So that was very good. So people were very excited about the quality of work that was happening. Second, we had it's a young team. Everyone was no nonsense. Everybody could say what they wanted and all that. So there was very little bureaucracy and, so to say, politics in this whole thing, we had very flat organization from very early on. And that made it easier for some of the junior and the senior people. And I did a lot of early recruitment at colleges with a very specific motivation. So I had identified about a dozen faculty members across India who were working in the database area. Sure. And I had a quote unquote a deal with them. In a deal in the sense, I told them that if you send a person to me, I will push them, but I will 100% hire them.
Wow.
So that way what happens is that faculty members could say that, "Arey, don't worry, I'll get you a job." So that was very reassuring to them. And we actually made our tests very hard. A lot of people I meet today who come and tell me that, oh, I didn't get in, but I feel very happy about it. So we did recruit very selectively and aggressively. We're a small company. We're not looking at thousands of people, looking at a few, 20, 15, 20 people at a time in the first 12 years. And even after that, we were very selective about hiring only computer science people and not just taking engineers. And we would go to colleges and say, hey, these large companies, they hire computer science guys and non-computer science guys and put them together, so they don't value your degree. We are the only ones who only hire you because we value what you do, and a bunch of things like that. So it was very deliberate, but it worked well for us to get pretty much good talent. And today our alumni actually is in very influential positions all across the world. We get a good amount of business from some of them.
Interesting. Very interesting. I guess, everybody ends up being an ambassador for the organization.
Yes, absolutely.
If they've had a good...
Actually, we have treated people who have left us really well.
Mm-hmm. So I'm very tempted to ask you, Anand, that, when you put all this talent together, and everybody is very good at what they do, and, with that also comes people wanting to own their territory, having very fixed ideas about what they're doing and where they want to go. How do you then infuse the DNA as a founder of, staying the course? I mean, for example, like you said, we didn't get carried away by whatever was happening in the industry. We wanted to be very focused around what we were doing, no body shopping. How do you then, is there a veto card you draw when, business will come and tell you that, look, there's a lot of money to be made, there's a lot of things to be done, or people will want to try different things? So one could be from the business side, the other could be from a culture perspective. So how do you ensure, while you have all these talented people around you, that the ethos of the company still stays what it is, what you set out for it to be?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. So, see, overall, at the end of it, you have to get to a point where it's not about me, it's about the mission.
Yeah.
Right? So, if the company is about, you work for me, and if I do that, everyone else thinks like that, then everyone is working for someone else. Then you get all these complexities, politics, and everything else. If we are all very clear that we are here, of course, we are working for ourselves and for the company, but the mission is what we are trying to do. And we make a choice not because of you and me, but because of the mission that we are trying to achieve. And that really helps in a big way. So trying to be very clear that it's not that you work for me or anything else. We all work for the company. And the company has an objective. And all of us have an opinion on what the company should do and all of that stuff. So that is one very important thing that is there. Now, let me sort of share this in a slightly different context. Instead of focusing so much on the early days, around 2015, 16 or so, I spent a lot of time thinking about, and I'll share the story of what happened. So I ran into a bunch of people who came mid-career to me. And, from outside, from inside, early 40s. I was in the late 40s at that point. And people were sort of thinking through this and saying, you're hitting the mid-career trough and not sure where to go and all that. The question was, so what do I need to do to ensure that, I have a career that is successful and all that. So
Within Persistent.
Within Persistent or otherwise also.
Yeah.
So I created a sort of a framework on how to manage careers. Okay, and I was thinking through that and I came to a few conclusions. So first thing that we came to a conclusion and that we implemented in the company was, we called it life at Persistent. So basically we said that every individual is responsible for their own life and career. At that point, everybody was talking company first, employee first, customer first, all kinds of stuff. So we said me first. Okay, very different from everyone else, saying that every individual is responsible for their own life and career. One. Second, career is only one part of a life. So we said life is about four things, is how we defined it broadly. One is what you do for yourself, what you do for work, what you do for family, and then finally what you do in the community. For everyone, community may be different. Some people it may be music, some people it may be religion, whatever, it doesn't matter. But you have to balance all these four things and they should all work together. Now, for whatever reason, work has gone into life and family everywhere.
Yeah, it's seeped in everywhere. Yeah.
So you should allow other things to seep in as well to some extent. So we sort of opened it up quite a bit and we said, we should think about life at Persistent as a way to do it. We are saying that every individual is responsible for their own life and career. We understand what career looks like and what life looks like. So we should encourage people to make choices that are appropriate for them without necessarily thinking about what does it mean for us as a company.
Sure.
Because otherwise what happens is when you look at training, you look at all these things, there's all these organizational charts, hierarchies that after 3 years you should be here, you should be there. Who am I to tell you where you want to be? You should choose where you want to be. But the other corollary to that is whenever you make a choice, it has consequences.
Sure.
So this is again, when you tell people you are responsible for your own life, that's great. Second, you tell them that, every choice has consequences. It's very bewildering for young people and other people. Say, okay, what does it mean I'm responsible for my life? We are used to a situation where 8's a 9, 9's a 10, 10's a 11, then you go through it. And then there's a stacked path that you are doing. When fresh people come, HR guys love to draw career ladders for them. But we sort of stopped that in a big way. And we said, we will allow you to do what it takes. And then the conversation that we converted it into is that you will stay in Persistent as long as being here is the best for you in your career and your life. Otherwise, you should leave.
Phenomenal.
So once you accept that I'm not hurt if you leave the company.
Yeah.
Right? You're not working for me.
True.
You're working for yourself in a way. You're professional. You work for your own your professional pride. You're responsible for your own life and your career. You make choices that are right for you. If I want you to stay with me and work with us, then I have to make it good for you. Otherwise, I should not feel bad if you decide to move, right? So once you kind of get that reoriented in terms of saying that, we are an adult organization in this. We are not parents telling kids what to do or kids telling whatever and tantrums and all that. And if I want to leave, you leave, right? Once you keep that clean, then it becomes much simpler. Then you are talking about, okay, I understand what your career goals and aspirations are. or you can tell me what your career goals and aspirations are. And as an organization, I should try to see how to make it good for you. Otherwise, you should not stay here. And once you get that, then it becomes a lot easier because we have a mission. We know what we want to do. We have opportunities for you to do different things. And for those who kind of make the transition and work with it, will benefit and grow. Those who don't have to. They can stay where they are. We are not obligated to take care of everyone in that same order because, at the end of it, you have to make your own choices, right?
I think which also explains why, you probably have a great rapport with all your alumni and
Yes.
they are now ambassadors and,
they come back
people
also.
who,
At a
and
later
also
time.
send work your way.
Sure. They do send work our way. They also come back. They send other people, so we get a good set of response from it. But, it's a little bit of an adult conversation that one needs to have. A lot of times what happens is that, of course, now, this is not the case when we started, but right now, I'm much older than these kids who are now coming, and they are much younger than my kids. Okay? They were born much after we started Persistent. We've been around for 35 years, right? So there is this sort of, the hierarchy, the age gap has increased. In the past, it was not that much. Now, there are some people who are over 40, 50, and there are 20-year-olds. But then there is this whole thing, we have to sort of accept that these kids are also not kids, they are adults in a way, and we are all working together.
What we will talk about is obviously what you've done with Persistent in building such a beautiful organization and how you've pivoted that role beyond Persistent also into public life. I know you're a great champion of entrepreneurship through the Astra Foundation, helping small businesses succeed. You established the Persistent Foundation in 2009 to drive social impact through interventions in healthcare, education, community development, heritage, and wildlife preservation. How are you sort of making sure that these organizations continue to do the great work that they're doing now? And how do you ensure that your children get involved in it? Because philanthropy is something even your father, I think, felt very strongly about. You've done a great job with it. And now how do you sort of get the children also to get involved in it?
I don't know if I have an answer for that, but I can, so again, as I said, we have benefited from the community. We came with very limited resources when we started, and right now there is access to more. So I think we feel we don't need most of the money that we have earned. So we are definitely looking at ways to contribute and in different ways. And as I look at it, as to in terms of is the cash is one part of it. You can, of course, write checks and be done with it. But I have defined a few missions that are impactful and long term, and then I'm trying to see how to influence some action in those things. So a lot of our thinking is in that area. I think the kids we are not forcing the kids again to do this or that right now. I think it's still, we have had this conversation, but we haven't forced a decision with the kids as to what exactly is their calling or their philanthropy. But let's see where that ends up. But I'm very sure we have involved them in everything we do so that they know that whatever money we spend from their potential inheritance.
That's a good one. Where it's going. They know where it's going.
Yeah, what we have tried to tell them is they should not assume that everything we have is their inheritance first thing. And then we are spending not from their inheritance, but from what we didn't intend to make their inheritance in the first place.
No, that's absolutely fabulous. And I'll probably now ask you, what is it that really excites you now that, you step back? There's a lot of time you're spending on giving back, promoting entrepreneurship. What is it that's really sort of consuming you these days? And I'll probably close by saying that if you were to start a company today, what would you do differently?
Okay, so let me first answer your first part and then the second part. So right now I'm thinking about 3 broad areas. Okay, so one broad area is around entrepreneurship, and I run 2 programs, the Astra Foundation and Second Orbit. And then I really believe that, science, data, research, AI, we are not doing well in health, all of these things, and especially the research end of things wrought so much on this. So I've been trying to find a way to bring communities together because I think good research happens when people communicate well with each other.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to find, so my area again, as I said, is data and computing and all that. So how do you bring computing into various things? So I've been working with the Department of Biotechnology and biotechnology related stuff. I'm working with cancer research and diabetes type research. So a lot of healthcare, data, AI, and I like learning new things. So I spend a lot of time trying to figure out some new stuff every year, let's say that. So I spend a significant amount of time trying to sort of learn new things just for the heck of it also. So that's been one of the things that I work on. And third, I'm really concerned about or think a lot about sort of careers, jobs, future of jobs and things of that kind. So those are three broad buckets in which I'm devoting most of my time. And once I get it to a certain point, my goal is to find a team and let them run it and then sort of open it where other people can also.
So you're kind of, in a way, incubating ideas.
Yeah, in these broad areas. And for each of these ones, so like for the Asra, we have a team. I have a 40 people team full time working on it. And I have a CEO and she runs the I'm not operating that. Similarly, in other things also, we have in a couple of places, we have CEOs or CEOs who are running the mission and I basically fund and work with them. So that's what's going on. In terms of what would I do now and what would I do different, I think, as I said, life of companies is getting shorter. I would do more if I'm starting with sort of quote unquote the wealth. So like if I'm telling my kids what they should do, I would encourage them to take more risk. When I was starting out, we had no ability to take risks. So we did very month-on-month cash flow generating businesses. Like every month I get paid and then I can pay my salaries. Today, I think our kids are some people with the ability to take risks and VCs and all that. We should try some bold and quote-unquote big things because just doing the same things is kind of not that exciting, especially if you are privileged and you have the opportunity, right?
Absolutely.
So that's sort of where I'm, meaning if I were to start from where I am. If I were to start from where I was at that point and now if I've got no money, then of course, rolling cash is the best way to start a business. You build something that will pay for your salary and then you keep paying, accumulating.
No, I guess your mindset also changes. And as you rightly said, I think the ability to take risk is far greater when.
Yeah, again, risk is not risk in the sense that you take a calculator, but taking bigger bets is how I would say it. So, if one were to say, okay, I want to try something new or take do some research, spend some money before you'll see the returns. The ability to invest that kind of cash now is not only possible from where we are standing, but also the community has evolved itself enough to make that happen. And I'm happy to invest in some of these kinds of things, not necessarily for kids as well, but that is one of the things that I do when in my entrepreneurship bucket. So see how to help people take, bigger bets.
Yeah, bigger bets. Anand, thank you so much. This has been a really insightful and very, very interesting conversation. Your thoughts on legacy without dynastic succession, about building institutional depth, philanthropy, and business as such is sort of so insightful that I'm sure there's going to be a lot for people like me and others who hear this podcast to think about. More than anything, I want to thank you for your candor, for your generosity of time and sharing your thoughts and wisdom with us. It's been an absolute pleasure for me to sit by your side and hear your vision and journey firsthand. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm also very honored to have had this opportunity to talk to you. I want to wish GT all the very best. You have a very monumental 90th year that you are celebrating this year. And I'm sure in 10 you'll be at 100. And I want to wish you, the firm, the extended GT Bharat, and the entire family all the very best.
Thank you very much.